You lost an apprentice, and so did I. All in service of our greater goals.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Good to have you here. Settle yourselves in as we're taking a look at episode 4 of Tales of the Jedi, titled The Sith Lord. This, hands down, has to be the best episode of season 1 of Tales of the Jedi. This was brilliantly paced and probably the most connective piece of material to come out from the Star Wars animated shows, bar the final arc of the Clone Wars at this point, because this episode takes place during and after the events of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So let's not waste any time, let's get into this. So a little bit of time has passed at this point, as judging by Dooku's beard clock, and he has a lot more grey hairs involved and matted within his facial hair at least, and possibly his actual bed of hair, but I didn't actually look that closely. And we catch up with him walking through the archives of the Jedi Temple, where he wipes the database clean of any traces to Kamino, which is obviously a direct setup and link to the inevitable investigation in episode 2 of Obi-Wan searching for Kamino and the discovery of the clones.
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
A little bit after this, just before we cut to the intro card, we catch up with Qui-Gon as he's returned to the Jedi Temple after confronting Darth Maul on Tatooine. So this, I presume, would be right before Qui-Gon introduces young Anakin to the Jedi Council, which is awesome. This was mind-blowing, and really, really happy to see this. Just so happy. I can't put into words how awesome this was, and it was great that they brought Liam Neeson back for an episode. And if you're unaware, the young version of Qui-Gon in episode 2 was actually voiced by Liam Neeson's real-life son. We get a little understanding of Dooku feeling sidelined and steadily moving toward a disgruntled attitude with the Jedi, and his steady progression toward the Sith, as his conversation with Qui-Gon leads him to feel suddenly that he's not needed. And Qui-Gon, obviously at this point, has Obi-Wan as an apprentice. He's just brought Anakin back to the temple, so, kind of witnessing this progression in his former Padawan has left Dooku feeling rather betrayed in some sense, or rather underused. There was some awesome visual parallels in this episode, particularly with Yaddle, who kind of gets a larger character arc, probably the most character development she's had in the entire Star Wars saga, as she has an interaction with Dooku in the hallways, and they kind of discuss ideologies a little bit and kind of how they're both feeling, and they separate off, and the camera cuts to see them both walk away from each other, and Yaddle walks towards the light, while Dooku walks towards the part of the hallway that's cast in darkness. Just really nice visual storytelling. Then after the intro title card, we catch up with Dooku underneath the tree that kind of was a huge element in season 6 of the Clone Wars we saw a few times. And we find out that Qui-Gon has died. So this is now post episode 1, but kind of still within the timeline of episode 1 as well, as most of the Jedi are on Naboo for the funeral of Qui-Gon, so there's very little Jedi actually there right now. And we find out very briefly from Dooku by mention that Qui-Gon was born on Coruscant, and that he was always fascinated with the tree in this part of the Jedi Temple because it was a form of life on a world built from metal and machine, which was just, again, beautiful storytelling. I love it. We see some visual struggles from Dooku in being able to let go of Qui-Gon's passing, even though Yaddle says that you need to. And after a little bit of movement, Dooku travels out towards the industrial sector of Coruscant, and Yaddle follows him. And when Dooku arrives, he is obviously confronted by Sidious, which is surprisingly voiced by Ian McDiarmid.
Do it.
Very welcome surprise, given that Ian will be coming back in the Bad Batch in season 2 as well, and he was obviously voicing Palpatine / Sidious in Rebels. This was awesome. And Yaddle kind of walks in on their conversation as Sidious tells Dooku, it's like, look, you need to do this for the greater good or whatever, and clearly Sidious is kind of playing into that side of Dooku that wants change for the galaxy, that wants to see a better day compared to everything that he's witnessed so far. And Yaddle confronts him, and Sidious forces Dooku to kill Yaddle to prove loyalty, but Dooku does have a level of hesitation around him, and when we think that Dooku has done it by crushing Yaddle with a fucking door, which was awesome.
Good job. Good job. Good job.
Yaddle rises.
Surprise, motherfucker!
But quickly after succumbs to her injuries and Dooku kills her anyway. So this was awesome, and was a very nice parallel to episode 2 with Yoda and Dooku's fight, and kind of gives an idea that actually, you know, Dooku can go one-on-one with someone like Yoda because he's already done it and he's killed someone like Yoda. The most interesting part of this episode for me was finding out that Yaddle doesn't talk like Yoda, which just lends itself even further to the mythology of Yoda's species and kind of who they are, how they are. Now that we've gotten a bit more context to Yaddle, we've had all the history of Yoda, and we've now got Grogu in the Star Wars universe. There's a lot more to find out. So Dave, everyone involved, give us a series about Yoda, Yaddle, Grogu, just one of them. Just give us what we want. The weight of this episode was undoubtedly the biggest part of the series and the best part of it. I will die on a sword that this was the best episode of Tales of the Jedi Season 1. It was fantastically written, beautifully played out, and obviously interweaves with one of the movies, which is what made the final arc of Clone Wars as incredible as it was, because you had this heightened sense of anxiety around the characters, particularly with like Ahsoka and Rex in that moment, who you didn't know the fates of if you were watching things chronologically. So to witness another moment within animation that plays out almost concurrently with one of the movies just really adds to the weight of the storytelling and of these characters and everything that we see, and just makes for a far more impactful experience and a far more engaging and enjoyable one as well. And at least we got a canonical end for Yaddle, so we at least know what happened to her now in the Star Wars timeline, which was great. I'm going to keep saying that word because I cannot express how good this series was, particularly this episode. If you take one thing from Tales of the Jedi, it is that Dooku's story was the best part of it. Ahsoka's was great and I love seeing it, but Dooku is hands down the best part of this series. That's going to do it for this one though, everybody. Make sure to check out the final 2 episodes of episode 5 and 6 of Tales of the Jedi that should be up shortly as well. If not, they're already up. And check out the larger video where I kind of offer up my wider thoughts to Tales of the Jedi and kind of summarize everything I'm saying in these videos. But until next time though, take care and may the Force be with you.